Do you need inspiration, motivation, or hope? Do you let fear hold you back? Sometimes you feel lost or just stuck in your own thoughts, and you want a clear path to give you results. Then, my friend, you are in the right place. My name is Rachel Best, and I am your host of How to Make a Mark in the World, Finding Your Signature. Go ahead and grab a pen and paper because you're going to want to take notes.
Oh my goodness. I am so excited to be here today. I have a special guest. I got the opportunity. We met on so happened, right? Like there's no accident. Yeah. Obviously, we know that when God's no accidents, but we met through a Les Brown motivational, inspirational speaking thread. And we happened to come across each other. I think actually I reached out to you because you really reminded me, you're the same age as my son and his friends.
Yeah.
You really reminded me. And actually I started seeing some of your Facebook stuff and I was like, oh my gosh, like this kid, he's on fire for Jesus and I'm really liking what I see and I really want to connect with him. So Michael and I got the opportunity to connect on the phone for like, oh my gosh, like an hour and a half or something like that. And he shared his story and what he's about and who he is. And I was like, oh my gosh, like you would be awesome to be on my podcast of How to Make a Mark in the World because he is definitely working on making his mark in the world. And so Michael, go ahead and share with everybody, like who are you and how are you making a mark in the world?
Absolutely. So Rachel, thank you so much for having me on your show. It's a blessing. Like I watch your show all the time and I'm extremely honored that you would ask me to be on your show. So first and foremost, thank you. I am a Christian first and foremost. So my belief in God is most important to me. I live it out. I try my best anyway. And I'm in church maybe 3-4 times a week, in the Bible every day, and just trying to grow in Jesus and be more Christ-like. And that has had a tremendous effect on my mental health and how I love people and how I love my family, how I work, my hobbies, everything. And so first and foremost, that's my core. I'm a Christian. Secondly, I'm a father, I'm a husband, and I take care of my family. And I'm also a speaker. And so I empower people to build resilience in the face of adversity. And that comes from everything that I've been through in life. I grew up with a drug addict father. I was exposed to a lot of things at a very early age that little children shouldn't be seeing and being around. I developed a brain tumor, cyst, and hydrocephalus, which I was in ICU for 9 days. I had to learn how to walk again, had to learn how to, take care of myself properly. And it was a long recovery. I have overcome extreme amounts of anxiety and depression that Jesus actually delivered me from. Mm-hmm. And so I've been through heartbreak. I've been through it all, and only 26 years old. And my desire to leave a mark in the world comes from the pain that I've been through. And I desire to help people find their way through it because I didn't necessarily have anyone to show me. And so I had to deal with a lot of my pain on my own. I dealt with all of my pain sober. And so I know what it's like to feel hopeless and feel like there's no way to win. And somehow, some way I pulled through. And it just came from persistence and tenacity and just seeing how my father was and just the things that I've been through at an early age. That's what drove me to want to be different and want to be better. And so even to this day, we all feel like giving up sometimes, but it's just a part of me. The fight, the way to win, the will to win, it's just a part of me. And so when I feel like giving up, it's always like, come on now, you got to get it together. Like, you're not giving up. So, and I've been guilty of feeling like life is supposed to be hard because that's all that I've been through, honestly. And I was reading in John, I think it might have been chapter 8, I believe, where it said, Jesus said that the devil or the thief comes to steal, kill, and destroy, I believe. And but I have come to give you life and that you would have it more abundantly. And when I read that, that changed my perspective entirely. So life isn't just supposed to be, suck and, hard all the time. Like, Jesus came to give us life and give us more abundantly. And me being able to work on my passions and me being able to help people and be happy and fulfilled in this lifetime is something that can actually happen. And so I am just extremely a motivated, inspirational person, because of what I've been through. And I always like to say my pain made me, because it did. And so I'm here today, 26 years old, have 2 kids, have a wife, in love with Jesus, and now I'm leaving my mark in the world by helping people overcome their own problems. And so it's an extremely rewarding field to be in, for sure.
Wow. Wow. That's amazing. And, I have found that, when we can, all the things that we've been through, like you said, like it can suck, right? Like life can suck and it can be hard. But like when we take those things that that we've been through and we can turn them around to use them for purpose, and that like you said, like you didn't have anybody to help walk you through that, to show you how to be and how to act and in the proper way, right? And so you're out there showing people, like being that example, being that reflection. And something that I'm super passionate about is Jesus as well. And we're supposed to be disciples and reflect the love of Jesus, be disciples, share with people, and share our testimony, because by sharing our testimony, even if it's just the one, just the one that you share and somebody hears it, that you give them hope, you offer them hope. You talked about you had anxiety, you had depression, you were hopeless. You've had a lot of pain, you've had a lot of things that you've endured. And by sharing your story and being transparent, that you're able to offer somebody else that maybe it's not the same thing that they've gone through or that you've gone through, but you're a glimpse of that hope that, oh my gosh, like if he can do it, then I can do it too. If God can do this for Michael, then God can do this for me too. And so, and I love that you're 26 years old and you're still on fire for Jesus, because you are, like I said, like I have my oldest son is 26, and you guys are the next generation. So we need you guys to be on fire for Jesus and
absolutely.
And so, share with us. You're also in the speaker realm. So just share with us a little bit more about, some of your story and a little bit about what it is that you're doing with your story and speaking and sharing.
Absolutely. So, for those of you that know who Jeremy Anderson is, I watched a video one time. Actually, it was a TED Talk of his. And he said that everybody needs a story, or everybody has a story, and everybody needs to hear it. Because if someone can hear that you've been through something and that you overcame, then they'll start to develop hope that they can overcome too. And so that's me. I wear my scars. I'm an open book. I'm a vulnerable person. I like to share how I feel and how I made it through things. And that's essentially, that's me outside of my speaking business. And so that's what makes me feel like my speaking business, or going to take it to the next level anyway, because my speaking business is who I am. It's not something separate. It's not like a real estate business or anything like that. Like, who I am is my business. And so me just personally sharing my story in work or with a stranger or at the gym or something like that, that's what you get when I'm on stage. I'm not, there's not an on and off switch with me. And so that's just my story. Ever since I was a child, seeing things that children shouldn't see. I'm gonna keep it PG on here, obviously, but it's always driven me to want to be different. In high school, people were partying and smoking and drinking. That was never me, because I grew up seeing my father do that. And I always said, I want to be different than him. I want to be different than that guy. And thankfully, God has saved my dad now, and he's a pastor, and like, he has completely turned his life around, which even gives me more motivation. It's like, man, like, you went from being a drug addict, and you went from being a drunk and a deadbeat to like, now you're a great father and a husband and a pastor. And it's like, bro, like, anybody can change. And so, I share my story, and don't get me wrong, like, I give Jesus all the credit. It's not something that I just was able to pull through on my own. When I was in the ICU bed, and I couldn't walk, and this is Jesus that came in. Like, bro, I'm a miracle. And I just I just wear it. So I have 3 scars on my head. And people often think I'm insecure about it, but honestly, like, I literally wear my scars. Like, I tell my wife all the time, I'm like, that happened to me for me to help people. Like, I'm supposed to have these scars on my head. Like, I have a shunt in my head. Like, if I were to go bald, you would see it. And it drains my spinal fluid down to my stomach. And so, like, I tell India all the time, I'm like, babe, look, one day I'm going to be bald, and I'm going to have that thing in my head. And it's literally for me to share what happened to me, so other people can get hope from it, and people can grow from it and just become better people, and get through what they're going through. And so, that's me. That's my story. And I share it like an open book, and I wear my scars, and I tell people about it. And you and I believe, just people outside of the business, people when I'm at work or at the gym or something, it's like, you're such an inspiration. And I'm like, man, like, Jesus got me through that. Like, if you want some of that power, I can help you with that. Like, I can give you some of that. And so yeah, like, I wear my scars, and it's just such a blessing. And I'm just so happy God gave me the mindset that I have to want to be better and to want to do better and not be like my environment, and want to give my kids a different way of growing up. Like, I'm extremely blessed by that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so share with us a little bit, like, like, I know when I met Jesus, like, it was, when you meet Jesus, like, you meet Jesus. And so it's a story to tell. So would you like to share with us, like, how you met Jesus?
Yeah, absolutely. So Dave Ramsey says, what's his quote? He says, I met Jesus on the way up, but I got to know him on the way down. And so I met Jesus when I was 17 years old. It was actually my prom night. And, obviously did some things I wasn't supposed to. And I just remember feeling so convicted, and just so like, man, like, there's got to be a greater purpose for me other than, doing this, what kids do. And I remember I just turned on some gospel music that night, and like, the Holy Spirit just spoke to me through the gospel music. And so turning on gospel music wasn't something I would normally do. And so I got to meet Jesus kind of growing up, but it was the pain and the hard that helped me get to know him. And so I followed Jesus for about 5 years, and then I had fallen back into the worldly things, and I started trying to medicate myself. I smoked weed a couple times. I drank alcohol a few times, got drunk, and I went 2 years of just running from the Lord, trying to do things on my own way. And when I say it completely broke me, that is not an understatement. I had the worst anxiety of my entire life. I mean, I would have panic attacks for absolutely no reason. I felt like I couldn't breathe a lot, and it was just literally my own head. And I remember in June of 2022, I remember being so scared and hopeless, and being like, man, like, I don't even want to be alive anymore. Like, for someone to feel that, they got to be going through some stuff, right? And so I remember I would think I was having heart attacks, and I would run to the hospital, and it was just not a way I should have been living, and God didn't want me to live that way. And so I remember just riding around, and I cried one frustrated tear. That's all I could cry. And so much stress relief came from that, because I finally had given up. I gave up trying to live for this world. I gave up trying to do things on my own. I gave up trying to, find pleasure and fake love from this world, honestly. And so, although I met Jesus without having any hard, I got to know him through the hard. And it's just been a blessing for the last year and a half, just chasing him, following him, and just being actually plugged in. And God has given me all my prayers. Like, it's just unbelievable. I wasn't married in June of 2022. Now I'm married. I've had a kid since then. Like, it's just been a blessing. Like, God has worked in my life in tremendous ways. And that's why I always tell people, I'm like, man, like, if you really want your life changed, like, you can really do so much, but you really got to give it to God, though. Like, that's why you were created. We were created to be in relationship with God. We were created to know him and to walk with him. And when you're not doing that, life just doesn't make sense. Life just isn't what it's supposed to be, And so that's how I've gotten to know Jesus. It was through the hard and through the pain. And now I'm locked in. Like, I was telling God the other day, I was like, bro, like, actually, it was this morning. I was like, I'm not going back, like, I'm locked in. I'm locked in with you, Jesus. So, yeah.
I love it. I love how you're like, that's how he wants us to be, though, right? Like, he just wants us. Sometimes we can make it so hard, or we just don't know what we don't know. But it's literally like me and you having this conversation. That's exactly what he wants. He wants you to have a daily, ongoing conversation. You're taking a walk. You're driving in the car. You're kissing.
Absolutely.
You're doing
Absolutely.
exactly whatever it is. Like, he's right here beside you every day, all day, and he just wants you to communicate. So I love you're like, bro, Jesus.
Absolutely.
I love it. Like,
absolutely. Yeah. And I actually felt when I first committed to speaking, I actually felt a little convicted, because I'm like, okay, I'm trying to motivate people. I'm trying to get people to understand that they can overcome and they can actually beat this, right? Like, and so I'm like, I can't tell people that without mentioning Jesus, like, because that's kind of like, I'm not really giving them the full, the full medicine, like, and so I've been trying to work that out in my own head. Like, how do I motivate people, but also, like, how do I incorporate Jesus into that? Because, for the most part, like, certain places don't really want you to speak about Jesus or your religion, or, whatever the case may be. They may feel like you're pushing it on the kids, or, that kind of thing. So, I'm still trying to figure that out, and I'm praying through it. And so, yeah, it just kind of been a struggle for me in that area. But Jesus is like the actual medicine. And so I need to give people that. And so, yeah.
Well, and I literally just had a conversation with somebody recently. My goal is to start speaking into some schools. And the conversation that her and I had was, well, you're not allowed to say Jesus, because I sent her my reel. And she's like, well, you're not allowed to say Jesus. And I was like, okay, which I knew that was, that would be a possibility in places. I mean, it's not right that it's like that, but anyways, but then I was thinking about it, and like, we can reflect the love of Jesus, like the principles that are taught, even that are Christians. Like, if you look in for some personal development books, like, they're not Christians, they're not a Christian background, but the principles are Christian, like biblical.
Yeah.
And so when we just reflect, the love of Jesus, we can do Jesus without saying Jesus. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
That without.
Yeah. And I would love to connect you with my friend Leonard. Like, he put it into a big perspective for me. He's like, you can't necessarily, some people don't want you to say Jesus, but you can go tell people they're fearfully and wonderfully made. You can go tell people that they're more than a conqueror. Like, you can go tell people these things without actually mentioning, the word everybody doesn't want you to say.
Right.
And, like, I would love to connect y'all, because he's such a great guy, and I know he would appreciate the podcast too. But yeah, he put that in perspective for me, and so that's helped me out tremendously. Let me tell you. Yeah. So just being able to put those principles out there, and without, offending people and things like that. So that's been huge for me, actually.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
So I kind of want to go back though, because when you were talking, you said that you were running away. What was it? So you gave your life to Jesus at 17. What was making you run from Jesus? Like what
That's
was
such a great question. I love that question, Rachel. So actually what made me really run from God was the fact that I was about 3 months from getting married, and me and my fiance split. Like, and we had already paid for a lot of things, and so I had went through a time period where I felt like I was giving more love to people, and and it got me to a place, a really dark place. Like I was like, I'm so tired of loving people. I'm so tired of being the nice guy. I'm so tired of, you know, just being, just like more giving people more than what they were giving me. And it led me to a really dark place. And for some odd reason, I decided to blame God for that. And which it wasn't God's fault. It's never God's fault how people treat us. And so that led me, that spiral, I went spiraling after that because I was just heartbroken, like, and most of the time throughout my life, I've realized like we tend to want to blame God for our problems and for how people treat us and things like that. And that's just not the case, that's all we got to put our trust in Jesus and not in man. And so that's what led to it. And then I had met a couple women along the way, and they just kind of did the same thing. And like, it just led me to a really, really rough place. And yeah, that's what led to it, honestly, heartbreak and just, giving people more than what they were giving me. And, I've realized, that was about what, 3-4 years ago. I've realized that that's just life, especially when you're a Christian. You're going to give people more than they give you. People are going to mistreat you. That's just how it is. And then if you look at what happened to Jesus, like he didn't live no just beautiful, glorious, perfect life. Like the man was tortured. People hated him, always trying to kill him and arrest him. Like, we see that throughout church history too. The Christians were persecuted and there still are, and so God has given me discernment in that area. So I understand that not everybody's going to be your friend, and it took the hard for me to realize that, it took me touching the stove to realize it was hot. And the reason Daddy told you not to touch it, and so that's what led to that, Rachel. That's a great question. I love that.
Yeah, well, thank you for answering. And
Yeah.
I think that sometimes when we in life that like you said, you were giving love, but you were giving more than you were getting back. And Jesus probably felt the same way with us sometimes, right? Like he's giving us, giving him back, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
But also, and just like looking instead of looking. Even though like you had that relationship with God, but you were still looking for other people to give that back to you.
Absolutely, yeah.
In the world, rather than looking up to Him, and He's our love, and He gives us everything. He fills all of those voids that we try to get in the world. And people are flesh. We're not perfect, and so we can tend to, like you said, like not give back to somebody that not giving their all, but they're not giving, and it depends on where they're at too. So if they're not walk with you, then it's hard to get something from somebody that they're not walking. And again, that's seeking in the world, that's seeking in the flesh, rather than seeking from our Heavenly Father, and He's the only one that can fill all of those voids.
Absolutely. And that's why self-reflection is really important, because I was longing to be fulfilled and complete by people because of my childhood. I went through so much. Daddy never really hugged me and told me he loved me, and my mom was a single mother and worked full time. Like I never got that love and validation. And so I would try to find that in my relationships. And my wife now, she helped me discover that. And that's why it's important to have great people in your life. And one thing I do want to say is that just because you come across a group of bad people, like let's just say your friends betray you or something, that doesn't mean that everybody's bad. And that's what, when I was spiraling, I had the mindset that, oh, everybody's going to treat me this way because that's all I've known. And so everybody's not bad people. And my wife, she really helped me understand that, and she helped me understand that I was trying to find validation in the world and people and my relationships, and like that's really what I've been seeking the Lord for, and things like that. So childhood trauma is like a huge thing on why people go through certain things, and things like that. So self-reflection is huge, and just having good people in your corner, like telling you certain things about yourself. And my wife's gonna be honest with me too, like, and I just love it. So yeah. But childhood trauma, that's a big reason why my spiraling was out of control too.
Yeah. And that's why I'm so passionate about what I do, Michael, because like I started learning all about how the mind works and how the brain works. And I love to marry the two. I love to marry
Mm-hmm.
and I love to marry all the science behind like how our brains work. And when you put those together, and like to bring awareness to people that
Yeah.
they're they're infant years, they're 0 to 7 years old. That is when that's when we're very moldable, and that's when a lot of things create us and into our teenage years, adulthoods, and things like that.
Yep.
Where we,
Yep.
our mind will operate out of those um, those that environment and those thought processes and those somebody like said it one time, the seed that was planted, whatever seeds were planted when you were 0 to 7 years old, and then into your teenage years, and then as an adult, like we are operating out of those things that were planted in us a long time ago. And when I discovered that the things that I was doing as an adult, and I didn't understand why, and I started learning, studying it, and I was like, oh my goodness, this is why I did this, and this is why. There's always a reason why people do the things they do. And
absolutely,
like you said with the childhood trauma, and there's so many ways that you can be healed through those things. And so I'm so grateful for this conversation. I want to tell you real quick, on the side, people are commenting on Facebook, and so they're saying resilience. One lady says she can relate to this, and so they're all saying hello over on Facebook. I just want to read to you real quick.
Absolutely, yeah. They can see me, so thank y'all so much. Yeah, and it also ties back into, if anyone has kids, you kind of understand that when you're raising your kids, at least for me, you're trying to teach them a lesson on why they got in trouble, right? And I feel like as adults, we often forget that there's reasons why things happen. And so we tend to just look at what happened and not the reason. And so I feel like that is a big part of my spiraling as well. Like just kind of looking at what happened versus why it happened and things like that. And so when I started to self-reflect and look at how my childhood was and how people, how for people's love and affection, that's when I started to really get freedom and being able to let things go. And like, believe me, like, I forgave my dad way before he even got saved, because I had to. Like, it was something that I knew I couldn't let drag me down, because if I was going to be better than him, I had to be different. And holding on that weight, and this goes with anybody, like, I have to forgive people. I had a person in my life that recently hurt me a couple months ago, and I mean, I love this person and I still love them, but they really hurt me, like, internally, like, and I held on to it for a good, like, few weeks, and I was like, man, like, forgiveness is not for them, it is for me. I have to let this go because of what it's doing to me, what it's doing to my mind, how it's making me feel, how it's making me treat people. It's knocking me off my mission. And if anyone's like me, I'm focused on my mission. And anything that's in my way, I have to get rid of it. I have to. And that unforgiveness and that unresolved trauma, I have to get rid of it. And I did. And I forgave that person. And that doesn't necessarily mean that what happens out of my mind and things like that, but I don't hold on to the resentment anymore. And it is such a blessing that God has allowed me to see those types of things in me, to understand that resentment and holding on to pain and all that weighs me down, and it doesn't allow me to help people. um, and it doesn't allow me to love my family properly. It doesn't allow me to raise my kids properly. And like, so those are things that I have to let go. And as hard as it is, um, there's just so much freedom in just being able to let go. The last 2-3 weeks, actually the last about month and a half, I didn't even know that dads could go through postpartum depression, but I've been going through that. Like, I have been depressed, and I mean, for no reason. Like, it's just overwhelming depression and all that. And like, I've been seeking God about this. Like, I'm not just wondering why things are happening to me. Like, I'm running to my father. Like, I need your help. I need you. And like, I have shed so many tears. I have probably shed more tears in the last 2 weeks, 3 weeks than I have my entire life, because shedding those tears is like stress relief. It's trauma leaving your body. Like, there's stress hormones in it. And like, God is molding me and growing me and helping me get rid of that. And so like, just reflecting on your life and trying to let things go has taken me to the next level in everything, in the way that I love my wife, the way I love my kids, the way I help people, the way I work, how I do business, how I take care of my body. Like, it's just so beneficial to self-reflect and to look at your life and figure out why something has happened. And so I felt the need to say that, because you said that stuff happens for reasons, and it's like so true. And that's what I'm learning in my life, and getting rid of that trauma and just letting things go. Like, so huge, so huge.
Yeah, and you touched on a big one that I'm a huge believer and firm with as well, is that forgiveness. And so
Yeah.
for unforgiveness, like, it's difficult, right? Like, God
Yeah.
forgives. And so, why are we, and my brother-in-law said it great a few weeks ago about forgiveness. Like, you can forgive. It's not, the Bible doesn't say you have to forget, but he does say you have to forgive. And so, when we forgive,
Yeah.
we're releasing ourselves, we're releasing that person, and we're also releasing, we're just letting that, just letting it go. Because when we harbor unforgiveness and bitterness and things like that, anger, things like that, those things harbor in our body, and they can affect our body. And so, having that forgiveness is such a huge key. Why are we letting people take up space in our head rent free, right?
Yeah.
And so
Absolutely.
forgive, and we learn, right? We learn, and we also even like to take it one step further of like, okay, what did I play a part in that? So there's that self-reflection. How did I play a part in this situation? Because we're always part of it. We're either a cause or effect, victim or the children, and so there's so many things that just giving that forgiveness
Absolutely.
is such a in life.
Yeah, and it's not always easy. It's really hard because Tony Evans said one time, or Tony Robbins, I'm sorry, he said one time, the biggest problem that we have as humans is thinking that we shouldn't have any. And so, a lot of times, when we have conflicts with other individuals, we do play some kind of role in it. Now there's certain times where people will like just completely do you wrong. And I understand that because I've been on that end too. But at the end of the day, forgiveness is not always going to be easy, but it's so necessary and it's so worth it just for you. And I seen this show called Live to 100. It's on Netflix. And it was about this guy going all over the globe finding centenarians. And so basically one of the main common denominator was these people weren't living with stress. Everybody that was over 100, they were not living with stress, and they were forgiving, and you know, and it just plays a part in your overall health too. Like that bitterness and that anger and just the resentment you're holding on to can play a huge role in how long you actually live. And so like that's how huge it is to like not be holding on to so much stuff. Like, and that's why I have been just adamant about getting rid of everything that I'm holding on to, even the stuff I don't know, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why I've just been so like I've just been so happy God's allowed me to cry like I've been able to. Like I've been really crying like a man. Like I've been really letting stuff go. And like I'm just so blessed by it.
Well, that's awesome, and thank you for being transparent about that. And like you're 26, so I think your
Yeah.
generation it's starting to shift. But I know, like my dad, I think I've only seen my dad cry like twice in my whole life. You know, he's like 60 some years,
Really? Yeah.
and so I'm sure
Yeah.
he's cried. I'm sure he's cried. Maybe he just hasn't let me see it. But I know
Yeah.
I've actually seen him cry, and
Yeah.
and that's something that like it's been really looked down on. Or, well, be a man,
Yeah.
cry,
Yes.
And so
Yes.
I love the vulnerability that you are sharing with us. That
Yeah.
if posted in the comments, he said, shedding tears shedding tears is purifying. And so, like as you're reading
Yes.
that, you're allowing to just feel that feeling and to be able to
Hmm.
release rather than just compounding it down and suppressing it.
Absolutely.
Because then what that does is one day
Yep.
something will trigger you, and then it's all over, right? And then you react,
Absolutely.
and then what? Like you might say things that you
Yeah.
don't mean to say. You might hurt
Absolutely.
people you don't mean to
Yeah.
hurt. And so I'm so
Yep.
glad that you're being transparent, and you're taking that time, and you're trying,
Yeah.
purifying, and you're letting God do the work in you.
Mm,
And so I really
yeah.
appreciate you sharing that, because I'm sure somebody
Yeah.
will hear that today.
Absolutely. Like that's why I say my I'm not separate from my speaking business. Like what I say on stage is what you get when it's just me and you know, because transparency, like people, like the world is craving something real. You
Mm-hmm.
know, the world is craving that. And so you're not going to always be loved for it. You know what I mean? But at the same time, it's like, man, like if Michael can be that vulnerable as a man, then I can, you know, and that's my goal. Like, and believe it or not, my little brother taught me that. I had to always feel like I was so strong to my little brother. And it wasn't until he was like, bro, like, you know, you don't have to be Superman all the time, right? And I was like, if I can't show you weakness, bro, like I got to be the example for you. And this was before I was or rededicated my life back to Christ.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember one night I cried on this boy's shoulder and I screamed and I just let it all out. And he was like, I've never felt like you were Superman more than just now. Like I look up to you so much more now. And like that hit me different. I was like, man, like the people are craving something real and being vulnerable is not a weakness. Like I take pride in my vulnerability because it's like, man, like that's actually where I'm strength. The Bible says that Paul was like, I boast in my weakness because that's when Christ is shown the most. You know, that's when you're really strong. And like that's the truth, you know. And I had to learn that the hard way. But yeah, so I'm vulnerable. Yeah, like I'm not all the time now. I still have pride issues, and I'm working through that, and I'm dealing with that. But just being able to release those tears and purify and just let it all out and feel things like it's made a world of difference in just how I am as a person, my overall health. Like it's unbelievable. And when I was holding on to a lot of bitterness and anger in those 2 years, my blood pressure was like super high. Now my blood pressure is normal. So like having stress and holding on to a lot of things plays a huge factor in your overall physical health. And so you got to start letting stuff go, people.
Amen to that.
Yeah.
Yes, I totally agree. So we're coming up on, oh my gosh, almost 40 minutes already. I'm so glad that it's been a great conversation.
Absolutely.
Already. So can you share, before we hop off here, can you share with us, like, first of all, how can people get a hold of you if they want to connect with you?
Absolutely. Yeah. So add me on Facebook. I don't know if you tagged me in the Facebook Live. Feel free to add me. It might say follow. I'll send you a friend request. Like, add me on Facebook. That is the best way to connect with me. I'm going to answer your messages. I'm going to interact with your stuff. Like, I'm just trying to get as many like-minded people on my Facebook as possible. So that's the best way to connect with me there.
Perfect. And then can you give us one either scripture or nugget of wisdom? What's the last thing you would love to pour into the audience? You've poured so much into them already, but what is that one last thing that you would like to share?
A broken and contrite heart, the Lord will not despise. And I have been brokenhearted before the Lord, and that's when he moves the most. And so if I'm going to be vulnerable to the people, I got to be vulnerable to God, and I got to be honest with him. And so if you're struggling with certain things, holding on to certain things, hopelessness, just don't really know how to get some healing in your life, let me tell you what, being broken before the Lord can take you to another level of spirituality and happiness and joy that you can even imagine. And so I've been vulnerable before the Lord, and I have been brokenhearted before him. And I don't go to the Lord thinking like I'm all perfect and good. I go to the Lord knowing that I need him and I need his help and I need him to fix this heart of mine. And so if I can encourage anybody, go to the Lord brokenhearted, and he is going to be near to you for sure.
Awesome. Well, I again thank you so much for taking the time today to just speak to us, share with us your story, and I'm looking forward to seeing how God uses you, moves you, in the world and your generation. And we need more your generation. We need more of you guys to just help turn this world around. And so we definitely need to have an army of people that love Jesus, ready to go out there and make their mark in the world.
Absolutely. Rachel, I can't even tell you how much I appreciate you just believing in me and letting me be on your show. Like, it just means so much to me. And I'm going to be getting a podcast soon. So I got to have you on there too. You got to return the favor. So. All right, I got to return the favor anyway. Yeah.
For you. Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Thank you. So thank you again.
Yes. Well, until next time, friends, we'll see you next week.
Absolutely. Bye-bye.
This is your host, Rachel Bess, and I hope you loved the show. Go ahead and subscribe to my channel, as well as share with a friend. If you would like, you can follow me on Instagram as well as Facebook under Rachel Best. You can also find me on my website at rachelbestspeaks.com.